Okay, check 1 2 1 2. Check 1 2 1 2. Microphone check 1 2 Baretta. Okay. We are going to talk about racism. Now, what I suggest is that we consider the speed of light. And in considering the speed of light, what are we considering? We're considering its speed. 300 million meters per second. I don't know if that's a photon. I don't know if that's a group of photons. I don't know if that's a wave of particle photons. I don't know what that is, but that's pretty fast. And I have to admit, it's very fast. Like, an example is this yellow ball. As you can see, this yellow ball. In the visible light spectrum, the white light is reflecting the yellow part of the visible light spectrum and absorbing all the other colors, generally in heat, but sometimes it's hard to measure here. So, if we're talking about racism, we're talking about a stress on the human eye. We're talking about a conversation, a communication response to negativity. We're talking about a lot of stuff. So, an example is, you take a look at a plant or a tree. Let's say a tree, a big tree. And you look at it and you say, that's a big tree. You look at it for a second, and light is showing the entire tree. But you can only see the tree for that second. But if you were to be able to look at the tree at the same speed that the tree is reflecting green light in the visible light spectrum from the leaves, or brown light from the bark, generally speaking, it seems that it would take a long time for us to be able to calculate with the same speed that light is for the tree. So it would take 6 months to get to know every leaf, what the speed of light does in a second. So if we were to cover 300 million meters per second, how long would that take to cover the entire tree? So if you measure the tree, it's whatever. So what I'm trying to say is that when we see a black man, for example, that black man could be Ethiopian, that black man could be Sudanese, that black man could be Somalian, that black man could be many different things. But the color is what is associated. So instead of seeing the tree for the way that the sun sees it, we see it for a black person for just being black. So if we look at a black person that's from Ethiopia, it's almost like looking at the tree. We have to be patient. We have to get to know the tree. We have to get to know the Ethiopian culture. We have to get to know the person and their personal life experiences. They're an Ethiopian. They're not a black man. Sure, their skin is black, but it's the same thing for First Nations. If you look at a First Nation person or a Native person or Native Pride, whatever, they could be Cherokee, they could be Apache, they could have many different social protocols. And in all those different social protocols, they have a cultural identity that goes beyond being a red man. It's the same with Asians, and it's the same with Europeans. Like, with an Asian, it could be Malaysian, Indonesian, Vietnamese, so many different identities when it comes to being Asian. So if I look at an Asian and say he's a yellow man, he's an Asian, and I don't consider that he's a Malaysian or a Filipino or an Indonesian or a Taiwanese, and I just look at him and I say Asian or Chinese, which is a mistake that a lot of people make. They assume that every Asian person, hey, are you Chinese? some you can tell the difference with Filipino and some Malaysian people, but usually this is a problem that I had growing up, is that I considered everybody that had Asian features to be Chinese. And I learned through time and stuff like that, that each individual person from each individual country that carries a flag of polarization has a cultural identity. And in that cultural identity, there's a person that is beyond the color of an Asian. So we have Europeans, Africans, Asians, First Nations. Now the problem is for example, black. Let's have a pregnant pause here for a second. Black. What negative words are used when negativity is experienced in life as it's associated to a white person coming into contact with a black person, in negativity from both parties? What is it? What is it? What are the words that are used to deal with negativity or a developed thinking pattern that's associated to racism? So if the speed of light is bouncing off the features of a black person, or the features of an Asian person, or the features of a First Nation person, or the features of a European person, what's happening is that we have all these negative words that are associated to these colors. And that's, we cannot continue to abandon our children to a harbor of words to use when they experience negativity in the light. Now, to illustrate my belief that light is a big stress on humanity, all you have to do is take a look at cars, take a look at fashion, take a look at politics. I'll use politics for example. The Republicans are red, the Democrats are blue, and then there's the Green Party, and then there's socialisms and independence and all that, and they use colors to polarize a dialogue or a conversation that represents the policies or their allocation of value as it's associated to their party. So they use colors to have people associate their polarized stage or stance. So here in Canada we have the NDP, the Green Party, the Liberals, the Progressive Conservatives, and they all have colors that are associated to their presentation of words. And in their presentation of words, they have a voting system. And in that voting system, you're voting on the associative color that's associated to the policy of their words, or their allocation of language, generally English. So what I'm trying to say is, if 300 million meters per second is a stress on the human being, and racism can readily be associated to an observation of a color or a hue, hence the human, in the light, then what are we doing? Are we going to continue leaving our kids with these words, these patterns of thinking, these neuroses, these racist neuroses in the brain, this emotional sickness that's in our society? So if we continue to do this, why don't we have a curriculum? Why do we not have a curriculum to teach kids that war and social strife and rallies and all these different things that are associated to color, we cannot continue to teach. We have to teach them about the Arapaho. We have to teach them about the Cherokee. We have to teach them about the Congo. We have to teach them about Ghana. We have to teach them about Somalia. We have to teach them about Lao Tzu. We have to teach them about Confucius. We have to teach them about Japanese culture. We have to teach them about what the Europeans were before Roman contact. We have to learn who we are beyond color. And part of the problem is capitalism. Capitalism is good for progress, but it's not good for diversity. And this is the problem in the world right now, is that people see color and they associate it to past conflicts. Like, for example, can you, I bet you 80% of the racial slurs that are used are basically influenced through war and conflict. They're not influenced through anything other than oppression and conflict. So, if I look at a black person, if I look at a native person, if I look at an Asian person, if I look at a European person, what words are used, and you can think of them. You got them in your head. They're in your head. How do we let that go? How do we let that go? We give a scientific pursuit of what racism is. A scientific pursuit. A curriculum that we can teach them when they enter adolescence. With children are innocent and they don't see color. I had my best friend when I was a kid was from Wayne Tennant from Kingston, Jamaica, and I didn't understand why all the other kids were racist towards him. So basically, the thing that's dividing us is the thing that's providing us, and that thing is the sun. That thing is light, and light is sending us in opposite direction. It's scattering us. We need to become one humanity. But that doesn't mean we go like Bulworth and we breed until we're all the same color, because diversity in culture is really important. What I'm saying is that we need a scientific curriculum. And what I'm saying is racism is humanity dealing with the speed of light. Stressed out by the speed of light. When you're laying bricks, when you're putting bar down, when you're at your computer at work, you're basically calculating all the time in the light. Even Nelson Mandela went partially blind from working outside in the sunlight. So what I'm trying to say, no, not what I'm trying to say, what I am saying is help me develop a curriculum or some type of conversation where we can say that we don't need these words anymore. We need to find out who an Ethiopian is. We need to find out who a Gaul is or who a Pict is. We need to find out who people are again, instead of saying you're a color. That's good for capitalism. It's good for policing capitalistic international or interracial countries. But it's not good for diversity. It's not good for appreciation of culture, religion, politics, of differing peoples. This video has been dedicated to empowerment of the Red Road and keeping your home fire strong.